Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming back. Today we have Lacey who's going to go through what's going to be Ken Shoulders number 13. And I think you guys are really going to like this. So I'm just going to let Lacey go ahead and start talking. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for letting me read this too. This
Hmm.
is cool stuff. I was just reading this morning too, and it was pretty good. Um, there is a good chance small-sized EVOs can be classified as legitimate black holes, although I am sure astronomers would object to this as much as they object to associating WIMPs with EVOs. Such associations lower the status of astronomy by being compared to mundane and ubiquitous examples. Still, when making a comparison between common everyday EVOs, even obtained by sparking to a doorknob, the resemblance in a fundamental sense is striking. EVOs make both negative and positive changes of matter simply go away by removing the effect called charge and mass. If that is not the essence of a black hole, then what is? A laboratory scale EVO is most likely a black hole in every real sense of them. The size is an entirely different matter and should not be confused with the action produced. Given this notion of providing an exit strategy from our portion of the universe, would it not be prudent to consider launching EVOs as black holes loaded with radioactive nuclear waste and project them into the vast dumping ground of space? Although EVOs are capable of radioactive nuclear waste transmutation to a safe species, the process of discharging the whole kit and caboodle into space seems easier to do than first chemically processing and then transmuting the nuclear waste into something more innocuous. The launching process appears to have a high safety factor associated with it, partially due to the small quantity of material launched per shot. This intermittent action gives a chance to check on a microsecond timescale to see if the event occurred as planned or if a parameter controlling launching successes should be modified before firing again. The flight velocity of such projectiles is likely to be slightly less than the velocity of light. This velocity is efficiently reached due to the greatly reduced mass of the slug of waste material being propelled while entrained in the EVO format.
Wow. There's some pretty interesting things that come out of that. One of them is that EVOs can deradiate nuclear waste, essentially, right? He's talking about. Um, I don't know about sending them out into space, though. What do you guys think about that?
Bad idea.
Yeah. It's a neat idea to try and entrain them and do something with them, but yeah, um, not going out into space, I don't think. Cool. All right, well, we've got one more paper. So that was one paper by Ken Shoulders.
And then this is EVOs and the strange particles of Li Urutskov. Am I saying that right?
I think,
Urutskov?
I think so, yeah.
In a paper by Li Urutskov of the Recom Institution Kurchatov, excuse my pronunciation, Moscow, published in Annales de la Fondation Louis de Broglie, volume 29, um, Horserie 3, 2004, and available for download at, and then there's a long link.
Yeah.
Reference was made in section 8 on page 11 to strange radiation found emanating from an electrical discharge through thin foils of metal. This present note will associate this strange radiation leaving tracks on nuclear emulsions with the behavior of EVO particles traversing the detecting photographic emulsion used in the experiment while in a gray state of existence. The present author has made available some details on such EVO behavior that can be downloaded from www.svn.net, and then a more complicated link, whatever. In particular, a summary essay entitled Electron Assembles can be used as a guide to other writings. Radiation characteristics. Specifically, Yurutskov stated using photonuclear detectors, which are X-ray films and nuclear emulsions, located at distances of up to 2 meters from the setup. We detected traces of strange radiation. The traces were clearly not of the acceleration origin because they could be detected over a period of 24 hours using a detector placed near the foil remainder. Further, he states, rather suppressing is the mere fact of recording radiation at the distance of 1 to 2 meters from the setup. Indeed, the radiation had to emerge from the setup, pass through the air, and penetrate 2 layers of black paper wrapped around the detectors. It is clear that the charged particle would not travel this distance. The other remarkable fact is that the particle energy estimated from the blackening area under the assumption of Coulomb interaction equals E700 MeV. The magnetic monopole reach. To help explain the results measured, Yurutskov invoked the action of magnetic monopoles. His rationale was described briefly as, now I would like to explain briefly why we have chosen the G Lokacs monopole. Of course, Mr. Lokac is a first-class physicist and a charming person, and I am proud that I can call him my friend. However, our choice of his theory was dictated by the mathematical harmony and elegance of his lepton monopole theory, rather than by his personal features. It would be improper to impose Lokac's theory to the Dirac theory, but I rather sympathize with the former. The present essay asserts that the cause for such effect is rooted in EVO behavior. The effect is all around us. Further, he elaborates that this strange radiation has also been found to originate from commercial power equipment when it is in emergency situation or near breakdown. Yuruskov states, recently we have found one more fact, not very important from the theoretical standpoint, but very significant for our research group from the financial standpoint. We were able to detect the strange radiation on industrial electrical equipment that emergency situation. I'm going to actually make this kind of bigger, or try to. Okay, there we go. Okay, the traces detected were identical to those obtained in the laboratory. Power engineers believe that these results would be helpful in elucidating the reason for failure of commercial facilities. However, currently the conclusion is that we detect something, but there are still more questions than answers. The strange radiation is thus more common than previously realized, and might be what is feared with the high voltage discharges from common electrical transmission lines and other discharging devices. These would escape detection using conventional methods, although Yurutskov did state that they were studying a form of miniature cloud chamber suitable for detection. Such EVO generation is not confined to high voltage devices, as it is just a question of field intensity that can occur even at very low voltage and very small devices. The 6-volt electrolytic cells and ultrasonic devices used in cold fusion produce substantial EVO generation. They can be generated through the triboelectric effect of rubbing stones together through movement of earth tectonic plates. The basic effect is all around us, but the generation of black or gray EVOs with penetrating power varies greatly with local conditions. Heat after death. Yerutskov expressed some surprise in the ability of his strange radiation to persist long after the power of the machine generating it was turned off. But this is a common event in EVO generation, springing from hydrogen or deuterium-induced mechanical stress, producing fractal emission of electrons. Many of the emitted electrons from sudden fracturing and the production of charge separation inevitably result in formation of EVOs. With EVOs as the basis for the cold fusion process of heat generation, heat after death is one of the observations springing from the use of such hydrogen and brittled materials such as palladium, nickel, and titanium. These materials continue to fracture long after the power is turned off due to almost any perturbation in temperature or application of external radiation. EVOs as radiation. It was also surprising to Yerutskov that the radiation had such a long range or high penetrating power. He thought a charged particle was not capable of this, and he said, "It is clear that a charged particle would not travel this distance." He was somewhat correct in this assumption, but he was apparently not privy to the way EVOs operate in virtual obscurity using a stealth mode at greatly reduced expressed charge. With normally available data and logic, the great penetration distance seen would be attributed to charge-free radiation instead of to the very low charge projectile an EVO is. In the example given in Figure 6 of the above-cited paper by Yerutskov, the EVO detected was in the gray mode, where there is still some interaction with material, although weak. Had the process used for EVO creation allowed greater subsidence or cooling, the black mode of transport would have developed and it would not have been detected. I have no opinion as to how an EVO got as black as it did during the unsophisticated apparatus shown in the paper by Yerutskov. Under the foregoing conditions, it is easy to exchange the notion of radiation in particle format if the details of shape and propagation patterns are not analyzed. The underlying difference is that the apparent energy of the radiation/particle is abnormally high. This energy level, as cited by Yerutskov, was E 700 MeV. That is not at all surprising for an EVO, as it carries many electrons with it. The apparent energy comes from the large number of particles contained that are available for external energy production whenever the gray EVO is sufficiently excited. With this pronouncement, it behooves one to check again on what we call cosmic rays and compare them to the very energetic effects produced by excited gray EVOs releasing their energy.
Wow. That last statement is pretty interesting, looking at cosmic rays. And we know that they're called muons, and there was muon detection done the Great Pyramid of Giza, where they actually found a chamber above the Grand Gallery, and another one as well too, because actually Carmen was there when all that happened back in the day. So thank you, Lacey. It's amazing, and they talk about the different the gray and the black EVOs and their different states and stuff. So does anyone have questions or comments or anything?
Yeah, I had a question that any of these tests, is there any notes by Shoulders or Hutchinson, anybody, Grenier, about gravitation effects changing? You know, when we clutch the vacuum and pull electricity out of it, we're pulling frill and gravity and everything else along with it.
Yeah.
So has anybody made note of gravitational effects at creating very localized fields?
I can't actually say that I've seen that in all the papers that we've read it, but I haven't read everything either at this point. Hey,
Yeah.
um, I'm there's a book called at EV, A Tale of Discovery, and it's about 200 pages long, by Ken Shoulders, which I haven't read, but I think we're going to break it up into sections and go through it in here as well. So that's a great question. We should sort of keep looking for it. One thing I will say is I've been going through the Pius patents and the nuclear fusion reactor. Um, I think that when they compress everything, there could be something going on there with gravity chip for sure.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's electrogravitics. That's
yeah,
they
yeah.
acknowledge that. Yeah.
And actually, Lacey found it. David Wilcock on one of the Secret Space Program 2020, I think. He talks about how charge clusters are actually used in the nuclear fusion reactor from the Pius patents, and also how the Hawk, which is the anti-gravity part of the Pius patents, the hybrid aerospace undersea craft, also uses charge clusters to operate. And she literally got screenshots of David Wilcock, the transcript of him saying that. So, there's a lot to be unpacked here. So we're going to try and go through that, I think, at some point in the group here. Maybe even next weekend or the weekend after that. Yeah.
Have you ever seen a summary of the gray, the black, the different EVOs, and kind of just
Well,
cliff notes what they represent?
not really, and I think that's part of the reason why we were doing this. Is that's my curiosity too. Is I haven't actually gone back and looked at all the stuff that we've done because this is number 13, Ken Shoulders number 13, and there is some information as to the gray, the black, and the white, essentially. And it seems like as it goes from the white to the black, or vice versa, I'm not sure which direction, that there's transmutation that occurs with that. And the very first Ken Shoulders number 1 that we did actually showed some of these effects. Essentially, it was absolute proof because it was from the proton lab in Russia that eventually they moved to the US, and they would shoot an EVO into a copper slug, and it was 99.99% copper. And out the other side, they did metallurgical analysis, and there was copper, there was silver, gold, and probably 20 or 30 other elements that were produced. So there's definitely something going on when it makes that transformation, where we get transmutation occurring, essentially. So yeah, that's a great question, Michael. I think that's something that we are really trying to achieve in this group, is to try and figure out exactly what's going on with all these different states for sure. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
try to put everything in order in terms of like my cosmology. First of all, if like you can spend days, probably weeks on that website, Cosmic Core, it's so good. I mean, it's really good. The woman who put that together, but, and I'd have to, most of my deep cosmology where it branches into spirituality, even like philosophy, all those, there's a point where they come together and it's so consistent. And she does comment on some really deep physics, but for me, the EVOs, I mean, it's pretty clear that's the transition where you're going from the realm of mind to the realm of matter, from time space to space time. There needs to be a transition
Yep.
through the ether, and it's kind of like an organized thought. And really, I mean, it's kind of like, again, I've said this before, and it's just, I wholly believe in it. You have omnipotence, omnipotent, omniscience, and omnipotent. So basically, like at all points in space, all knowledge exists, all power exists. Now,
Yep.
organizing that, and then if you go back to Walter Russell's teaching, it says basically like everything starts with mind. The prime mover in anything in the whole universe is mind. Technically, we live in the mind of God. It's this self-created universe, and we're just exploring that.
Yep.
But so really, I mean, it's kind of like
It's
what really you come to appreciate is the fact that we're living in a sea of thoughts. I mean, other things, some are human,
yeah.
some are, they don't seem so big because it's we're blind to it.
It
But
it's
We're
it's
swimming,
it,
we're swimming in like a pool of creation.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
everything around us even has been created by consciousness. Behind all of this is consciousness.
exactly.
Uh,
And we learned that from subquantum kinetics, we have the etheron, and Paul Lavallette's actual description of the etheron is he said if we can regard them as conscious entities. So basically, he's saying that's where it starts. And in one of the interviews with Chris Beskar, I said to him, I said, I think that an etheron, a charge cluster, and ball lightning are all one and the same, and they're fractals of each other. Now, I should have technically more said etherons, electrons, and ball lightning are all the same. But when I told him that, he said, "Yeah, you guys should pursue that because he knows about this physics group." And he basically said that we should pursue, going after this stuff. And it does have to do with EVOs. There's no question about it. It's all got to do with EVOs and electrons and this one electron theory and the electric universe. Going back to that, that's something that Chris really specified. And everything does emanate from one point because the Turing wave actually oscillates between time space and space time, and it's basic building blocks of everything. So if we look inside of everything at the subquantum level, we will find that Turing wave pulsing at exactly the same frequency, which I've said in the past is sort of like the heartbeat of source, essentially, in our dimension that we're in, self,
It's
right?
almost like etherons are just consciousness units, and I think it's quite interesting. The recent conversations in AI have been like about these multi-agent swarms. We're kind of like a multi-agent swarm ourselves, and then acting in a swarm of multi-agent swarms. It's exploring, as Michael said, this sort of thought space, having experiences, which is, I don't know. I thought that was quite an interesting analogy. Um, Ed
Yes.
and Lacey, how did your meeting go this week past?
What was that?
Didn't you guys have a meeting with I'm not sure if it was Chris Beskar or
Oh no, it's coming up. We're gonna do it sometime this month, actually. That's the
okay, cool.
and then we'll have it put up on my channel on Technology Envoy channel at some
Oh,
point as
sweet.
well. Yeah,
Still
Excellent.
yeah,
prepping for we're still prepping for Chris.
yes, we are.
Yeah, good
Yes,
luck.
yeah,
I
definitely.
don't envy you.
Yeah.
I'm really nervous.
Nope.
Um, Chip
No,
just
don't be
said
nervous.
Chip just said in the
Yeah, sorry, I
chat.
asked him to post the question into the chat so that I could actually put it into the research version of Gemini because it's a paid version which I have a trial of at the moment. So
Oh,
I'm just
cool.
gonna
Yeah,
I'm gonna see if I can get a good response on it and what the references might be. I think will be interesting. So if you just give me a minute, I'll do that.
yeah. Because
So while you're doing that,
Ken Shoulders basically said that these EVOs are the clutch that engages the ether to
yeah,
do work, right?
I really like that idea. And I wanted to follow up a little bit on, like the Floyd Sweet device, for instance.
Yep,
He postulated the very same thing, the space field,
yep.
that would be perfectly fit this conjecture about the clutch mechanism. So as he built barium ferrite crystals were very unusual, obviously, and
Yep.
seemed to almost produce an aura around his entire laboratory to the point there were barium ferrite crystals growing on the copper wiring within the house.
Oh,
And
wow.
I think I
Wow.
mentioned this. I know of a place in Salt Lake City where a woman has an entire house with barium ferrite incrustations around her electrical wiring.
Wow.
And so if you do a little thought experiment with that, like Ben says, you could potentially see where there is a resonant barium ferrite clutch in action here of some kind, where the EVO field is the EVOs are responsible for clutching and dragging along the space field around some distance around the conductors in the house. And as
Yep.
a result, you get some kind of a bizarre transmutation effect because it's being created by the barium ferrite. And so what grows around the copper wiring? Barium ferrite. I'm going,
Yep.
oh,
Yeah.
gee, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So I hope to be able to do a little research on my own and see this place. I know where it is. It's in Salt Lake, and we've been trying to get access to it for a while. So
Cool.
obviously the person has no electrical bill. house is the house is literally off the grid, or maybe more appropriately, completely embedded within the vacuum grid.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing, Chip. Wow. Yeah, keep us posted on that one for sure. Definitely. If no one's got any more comments, we can maybe stop the recording and
Well, I just want to say one thing real
oh,
quick
there,
too, Ed.
yeah.
Sorry,
Hey.
sorry I missed you guys the last few weeks. It's been really hectic, but I don't know why I've been getting this message that if you can't find the book on these curiosities and these questions that you that we're all searching for, I think it's a kind of like a notion that we should write those books ourselves, you know. And sorry I missed you guys because
Good
if I
idea.
didn't do it, I had to put 100% focus on my book because if I didn't, it would have took me another 5 years to finish. So I finally got it in its final manuscript, and then I just have to add the pictures and whatnot.
What,
But
so what's it called? What's it called?
Congratulations.
well, it's called Mystical Recovery, and I'm working on a few different like subtitles, like a tale of spiritual transformation as like something like that as like the subtitle. But the main title is Mystical Recovery.
Super cool. Yeah, congratulations. That's amazing.
Yeah, yep.
Actually, yeah, I didn't know that you were doing that actually. Wow.
Yeah, it's been a long project I've been working on for years, but actually once it's finished, I want to jump onto the science stuff and start writing some stuff about this and that, you know.
Yeah, and how subquantum kinetics connects to
Yeah,
everything
yeah.
essentially. Yeah. Yeah.
All the stuff we were doing is great because even like how we were talking with everybody write their own little chapter of their different perspective on the research and what they're doing would be tremendous because it's really pulling that synergy of how far the applications of subquantum kinetics can reach, you know, and it's a theory
Right.
of everything. So it can explain literally from the smallest to the cosmological scale. And that's a huge undertaking. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but even learning it's overwhelming.
And definitely, and there are actually 29 predictions that come out of subquantum kinetics that all through about 40 years of time have come to fruition and become true, right? From the very big to the very small again. Paul was, yeah, he was a genius. I remember when I nicknamed him Tesla 2.0, I said to him, I said, you, sir, are the second smartest man to set foot on terra firma, of course, Tesla being the first, right?
The last 100 years. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, oh yeah.
definitely, right? So, yeah.
Chris brings up an interesting philosophical question. We're working on a document. It's a bridge across disclosure. It's a very general topic. And there's some very basic philosophical principles in it. One of which is how, in the situation where we're working with nanophysics, hyperdimensional physics, in a situation where it's nearly impossible to do any experimentation or proxies of experimentation, how do you arrive upon a consensus of truth? And so what we're doing is we're relying very heavily on intuition. And
Yeah.
so we get into these podcasts and we listen to people like Lacey and some of the Gen Z types, young folks that maybe not have any exposure to formal physics training like I had and all the bullshit I got inundated with.
Yeah.
And we're looking for pure incipient intuition. And I do believe there is, when you have a group of people that resonate even through a computer screen, that are saying pretty much the same thing. They have a gut feel that's very similar. And whether they're star seeds or not, the
Yeah.
intuition becomes important in trying to find a hat peg for truth. So I believe that that's something we should not shy away from. And yes, going to the literature and just like we're trying to do with Ben's, like, has anybody talked about it? Well, Christ, we're maybe the first ones actually talking about it as a group. And we need to have that confidence in ourselves. I feel that,
Yeah.
especially when you got 8 or 9 or 10 people kind of saying, I'm kind of resonating with that. Let me go sleep on it a few weeks and come back. And oh shit, yeah, that works out. Then we're on second base at least, maybe halfway to third base.
Yeah.
With some kind of a truth, some kind of a consensus for truth.
And we're in a point in our lives where we have to rely on our intuition we have to be able to evaluate information using like our feeling centers, really. Like
Yeah.
be in the present moment and to evaluate information, and then what does it mean to us individually, and then coming together and putting that together. It's like that's very powerful.
Magic.
Personal path. Yes.
Mhm.
Personal path, get yourself straightened out. And then does it resonate and exponentiate within a group meditation environment or a just group discussion environment?
Yeah.
I think, given our royal DNA, we may have some unique capabilities around that, and that we should lean on it. You know, in my career, I can't tell you how many pairs of pants I got lost in front of the boss or the boss's boss
Mhm.
or pontificating on subjective issues around very expensive projects that required a whole lot of good numbers, and for which we had no numbers. And you know, we're practicing science like we're practicing medicine, practicing law, practicing being the salient term there. We
Mhm.
don't know a lot, and in some cases, we don't know what we don't know at all. We're completely fucked. And so you get in situations, even as a professional STEM employee or person running your own company, you get in situations where you have to rely on this intuition. And
Absolutely.
I think in some of these cases that we're talking about, very universal issues associated with magic sauce and source, and certainly subquantum kinetics, the very foundation of the universe, that we have a right and we should listen to our gut feels on a lot of this stuff. Obviously, put it together and make a trail of breadcrumbs out of it, and then we can write it down, right, Chris?
Yeah. Yep.
Then we
Very
can
well.
look at the damn book and bounce it off everybody else.
And you know what I was thinking too, because how did the Dogon tribe figure out that the
Yeah.
star system was a
Yes.
three star? Maybe it was remote viewing and this group intuition that instead of well, maybe they had extraterrestrial contact, but it also could have been the power of the universal mind, or putting our minds together and you know, thinking about it. Because even Paul talks about Leadbeater and Besant, and they did this remote viewing experiment, and that's how they got the spin of the atom or whatever before they. I'll have to look it back in the book, but he does talk about they did use remote viewing to come up with that consensus. Um,
Yeah. And
Very
remote
interesting.
viewing is very real. I mean, I know Rebecca Rose, and I know that she remote views. She remote views for someone that is very involved in all of it. And we all have these abilities. It is like using your intuition to go see what's going on, essentially. But it's consciousness that allows us to do this. And
Yeah.
etherons at the end of the day are actually what's going on here, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, supposedly 500,000 years, we were teaching this in the entire galaxy. That is our timeline. And I believe it. Not 500 million. We're going to be 12th dimensional beings in 500,000 years. We will advance further, farther, and faster than anybody else in this galaxy. I've
Love
heard
it.
that from several different sources.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Cool. Um, anybody
Sorry,
else
update
have?
everyone. I forgot about it. I was so involved in this document I was doing.
Oh,
I forgot it for a moment.
it's
Anyway,
okay.
but
Cool. Well, we got through it and stuff. For yeah, Ken Shoulders number 13, and
who narrated it? Uh, who narrated it? The Ken
Lacey.
Shoulders.
Oh, I did.
Lacey. All right. Okay. Well done.
Yeah, she did a beautiful job too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you. I should
Mhm.
probably stop recording, right?
Yeah, that's probably a good
Okay.
plan. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.